Excellent. Hello, everybody. Today is Monday, February 9th, 2026. We are having a workshop. It is 6 o'clock, and it's on road acceptance standards. Thank you to all the folks on town staff who pulled together all of this information for us. Mr. Manager and Mr. Assistant Manager, where should we begin?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Sorry.
There's no excuse for you.
There is none. I stand alone on Excuse Island. I think it's probably good to look at the, start off, I tried to craft, I guess, looking at the ordinance that we have on road acceptance. I tried to craft a little Cliff Notes section, as you saw in the summary, so I thought that would try to make it a little, I tried to keep it as a one-pager, but I just bled over into the second one a little bit. But that kind of gives you a summarization of when the town accepted or came up with this ordinance and the reason why they did it, as well as the process, and it lays it out on a step-by-step basis as to how that takes place when they do that, or when a person has crafted or created or built a road, that you want to bring that forward to the council for consideration, as well as the inspections, the review, and then all the different records that need to go along with that. That's followed by the ordinance that we have, excuse me, there, which kind of lays out a lot of what you have. Specifically, it kind of focuses on the private streets as well as a fairly substantial section there. But then it also has the standards and ultimately, when it comes down to it, the grid that's on, I think it's on page, it starts off under the subdivision of land. There's a grid that has the different, excuse me, subdivision road standards that are there. And a lot of that's based on the amount of car volume per day. So, and that can also determine what you need to have for travel way, width of right-of-way, curbing that's needed to put in there, if there's parking that's important to have, center line striping, and all those different items that are there. And that's ultimately the same for public standards as well. So a person, if they want to go private street, Bill Longley actually provided a good little sketch that shows about the right-of-way. Like that shows that you've got at most a 36-foot right-of-way that's using, 4-foot, sorry, a 2-foot shoulder and a 9-foot travel lane. That's about as minimal as you can get. That could also be done as a public street, but obviously that has to be less than 50 cars per day. And then as you get greater volume, like over 50 cars per day, that's when you get into the larger width. So you need to have, at that point, at least a 50-foot right-of-way, or if it's mixed use, you need to have a 60-foot right-of-way. So, and there's a lot more to it on like when you do go to the public road standards, as far as the aggregate and the base that you need to build up, the right-of-way area that you need to have to meet that standard. When you look at these definitions, there's a higher bar that needs to be met because it's ultimately thought towards being for the public benefit or a town-owned asset. So it's a question then of making sure that it's built to those standards and giving it a couple years afterwards, as you see through the process, to determine if it's going to hold up. And then it also lays out that the town does set aside an escrow and in case anything does take place. So a lot of this is kind of like I guess you could say, the nuts and bolts of it all. Probably the crux of the matter is, if there's any questions that the council may have regarding the construction side of it, and then what goes into, like on the, I guess you could say, the nuts and bolts or the bricks and mortar side of road building. And then the second part of that question that comes about is, does the town want to be in the business of accepting roads as a policy? And that's ultimately where it comes to council saying, okay, do we want to have this? And Chris can talk about what how many miles of road do we have at what point, and how many, if we add X amount of miles per road, at what threshold do we need to cross that we need to add an additional person? And then you also have to weigh that against, if there's a substantial investment that might be taking place, is there a return, you know, to the residents of that area? So if, let's say, like the other night's a good example, looking at Vining Way, which, excuse me, like generates around $400,000 a year in property taxes, and is that a decent exchange for more services that, say, a neighborhood like that would receive in exchange for their tax dollars? And so there's a lot of moving parts there. There's the policy side, and then there's the construction side. So that's kind of why we tried to tee this all up tonight for council discussion.
Go for it, Bob.
I agree with everything you said, but I was a little offended by that $400,000, because if you took 70% of it right away, that's what's.
280, yeah, 120 remaining to the house.
But the thing that really struck me as I worked my way down through that is a failure for the consideration of the finance committee. It jumped right out at me. And I don't think this has happened, I know it hasn't happened the time that I've been on the town council. I'm not sure if it's happened since you've been on the town council, but there's been no sign off by the finance committee for fiscal capacity responsibility of why the town should take it. And that, missing that critical step, I think,
Yep.
is a way for us to say, wait a second. You know, and maybe that's a piece that we ought to focus on. I like the idea, you know, the road standards are fine, you know, because it deals with public roads and private roads, it just in roads in general. So we're not letting anybody just build roads willy-nilly. We're holding people to a standard. I think what we're focusing on tonight is whether the town wants to burden ourselves with any more private roads.
But Bob, when was the last time we reviewed the standards? Because I mean, the 1-to-1 slope over 4 feet elevation gain kind of scares me.
That's a whole different.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's built now, but I'm saying going forward, right? Like,
Yeah, that's part of the standards.
you know, should we review those?
Well, how do we want to frame, so to Matt's point, right, we have the construction element, and then we have the policy element, right? If no one wants to accept any more private roads into public, then we don't need to have the construction dialogue, because we're basically done, right? But if we do want to discuss both sides, right, and then, you know, maybe we should start with policy and then move into construction, because if we do decide that we want to continue on or allowing public roads, maybe we want to change those standards, make them more strict. Maybe we want to revisit how much money goes into escrow. Maybe we want to your point, like, create ourselves a little bit of a buffer there so that it's not 120,000. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So do we want to start with the policy part, or do we want to start, I think, thoughts?
Policy
Yeah.
part, because I have
Policy?
thoughts.
Yeah.
I think with the construction, you know, I think that'd be something that we'd want to farm out to experts and sort of get.
Yeah.
And that's
I
not something
agree.
like I have
Peer
no
review.
concept of any knowledge on that, and wouldn't be able to speak. And I think that'd be, you know, we would revisit that and have others bring in. You know, Jeff obviously has expertise, but it's, you know, one person versus, you know, the 6 of us that. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I don't have any expertise on that. So
I
think
don't-
Policy would be the way to.
I don't want to drive the standards either. I just think that if we agree we're going to continue to accept them, it wouldn't hurt to
Totally.
at least look at them and maybe update them a little bit.
Yep.
So,
All right,
Yeah.
so let's start with policy.
Yeah.
Bob, and then Denise, and then Bailey.
Okay.
So I said to Matt the other night, this is the last road we accept. And then later that evening, I had to back those words up, retract it just a little bit, because I'm willing to look at the gain of an asset. So if I look at the new subdivision that's proposed out off Goose Hill Road, if it's built as proposed, there's significant gain for that open space and to have access to it.
Or what? Like, what's the gain?
Ties into Ryan's Forest, it ties into Seekins property, trails network.
Is there gonna be parking?
Yeah, but is
for-
there parking? What is the gain if we, like, what is that, unless it's like becomes a public access point, what is the gain?
Well, I think that's part of our discussion.
Yeah.
There may be something there that says, all right, once in a while, maybe it's worthy to take something, not just make the carpet statement, nothing more.
And I guess,
Wait, we're going in order. Denise and then Bailey and then to you.
So, yeah, sort of what Bob is saying, though, we need to have very clear, if we decide that we are going to be accepting public roads under certain conditions, those conditions need to be very clear, not just like, well, this kind of might have a benefit. Like, I think, first of all, it can't be a dead-end road. It has to connect with other public roads, and there has to be, like, continuity for plowing, and also because that's a public road, is like literally a dead-end. Private road is a private road, it's not a public road. Also, yeah, some sort of public benefit in order to take on that cost is important. For me, I can't list out all the examples of what that would be, but that's why we're here brainstorming and stuff. But as far as like the construction thing, I imagine like a lot of this is based on like MDOT standards.
Yeah.
Would that be like, I know we're not talking about that part yet, but just in general, we would be going based on mandatory stuff people already have to do, and then what, like piling on top of that where we're able? Is there a lot of wiggle room even to dictate much about roads outside of what's already mandated?
There is a lot
Okay.
of wiggle room. Some of it's on like sight lines, angle of entry into the, or joining into the main road it may be coming off from. The standard part as far as the construction, I don't know if you can do much better than what you have here. It was designed by a PE who also happened to be the manager for the town.
No.
I'm surprised. Shockingly, yes, but Bill was an amazing civil engineer when it comes to that. So he's probably got one of the better standards that I've seen that hasn't really been, I guess you could say, toyed with or edited based on what maybe a developer might like. It's kind of more of a pure standard that you have there. I would say in comparison to others that I've seen. Some towns have different thresholds that they've employed too, depending upon, and looking at, Councilor Thorson, at like the concept that you were looking at. It's almost like once, like if you wanted to, like, say there was a small road, that might have been a private road, but then someone wanted to use that as a right-of-way to get to the land in the back. They would then, based on the number of cars that would go in there, they'd have to bring the whole shooting match up to a higher standard, and that, you see that oftentimes as well. You know, you're under the 50 cars, now you're over the 50 cars, so they have to start at the beginning and bring the whole road up to standards, and then they'd be motivated to look at the town and say, okay.
Brunswick has that standard.
Yeah.
Over to Bailey.
That was sort of what I was going to get at too, is having like the tiered standard, because I think when you're looking at it, like, I think some of the issues we've run into, like, to segment it out, are stuff coming from the planning board that was like under the initial impression. So how can we mitigate that before it gets to us? So I think like from a new road standard, we should have a set of standards, and then I think there should be another set of standards for conversions within the town. I'm not opposed to it generally, because I think if you're a taxpayer, like, you should have access to the same resources if possible. I recognize that that does come with a price tag, but I also think it's unfair to say, like, we're not doing any more roads. Like, if someone wants to bring their road up to standard, I think that it's unfair and inequitable to not give them that opportunity. And I think that we have to figure out how to make that work. And from a financial perspective, Bob, I sort of agree with the sign off on that, but I also think it's hard to put a price tag on it, right? Because, like, you can do a projected capital plan for it. You can do whatever you think might be the maintenance plan on it, but it's very, it changes every year based on gas prices, based on labor prices, so I think it's either we agree to it or we don't, kind of thing. I don't know that a price tag is going to change the decision for me necessarily. I just think it's something that people should have access to regardless.
Point counterpoint.
Microphone.
Is Field Road subdivision private or public? Public. So
Yeah.
that's a prime example of why we wouldn't take that over.
Okay.
It's 7 houses in there, 8 houses in there, and it's they're huge lots
Yep.
spread over a mile of road. So, you know, if there was 40 houses in that same development, your argument would hold water. But I think,
Yeah.
you know, case by case, if we look at something like that, you say, why would we take something like that? It's all this pavement for a few houses.
But my point to that would be that they're still paying taxes for all of that land. So like it should be, if they're willing to meet our standards, I think that it should just be an acceptance. I don't, like, there's someone still paying taxes on that block of land regardless. Like they're still paying for, say it's 40 acres and you have 4 houses on it. Someone's paying for 10 acres of land on taxes. Like I recognize that from an efficiency perspective, it might not be ideal, but I also feel like we're just going to get ourselves into hot water if we start saying like, well, unless we get something for it, we're not doing it. Unless we, you know, have a certain density, we're not going to do it. I think we either just take the stance that we're going to do it, or we take the stance that we're not going to do it. And like, if you want to meet the standards, great. If you don't, then we won't do it. And I think that just makes it easy across the board. But that's my take. So.
I have a go ahead.
You can go.
I have a question for Chris and Matt. So, I guess a two-part question. So, not to put you on the spot,
That's
but
fine.
you live on a tough
I'm a
road.
recipient. I'm a recipient of the good deeds of
No, but
of
she
the
lives on a
town.
really tough road, right? It's really narrow, and my brain goes to like, if we need to get a fire truck to Bailey's house, like, how the hell are we getting a fire truck to Bailey's house? Because like, I don't
I
even know if you
recognize
can make
I'm
the
dying.
right angles,
I
right?
recognize I'm dying.
And
it's
so
okay.
I guess my other question is, like, kind of around public safety, right? Is if you're trying to get an ambulance in, like, if you're trying to get an ambulance in there, or you're trying to get a fire truck in there, I understand that maybe that neighborhood has chosen to live on a private road that is, you know, particularly a little bit more narrower and makes it a little bit more difficult. But like, what does it mean from a public safety perspective, if anything? And is that part of the conversation or not, in your opinion, just from an ops perspective?
I think Councilor Douglas Road is a private easement. So we have an easement or a public easement over it, and basically we just plow that area. Under the planning board, under these standards, we would never accept that road as a public road just because of the turnarounds, the radius, the width of the right-of-way. So that road would even be considered for a public road. Not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, so it means that, like, I mean, I think it's probably just a different conversation, but if Bailey's house catches on fire, like, how are we getting a fire truck in there? Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we do get the trash truck.
You get the
in
trash
there,
truck in there, okay.
Which is
Just
good, but
recognize that I'm
but
dying.
oftentimes what you'll do is you'll work with the associations and just, and go in and say, okay,
Choice.
you gotta cut these branches back.
Yeah.
You know, so we need to make sure you've got clearance. As I live about a half mile up the street in a separate town, but similar circumstances
Yeah.
as Councilor Douglas. And Wyndham had that happen 2 years ago. The town went through and just said, hey, you know, they were not maintaining the backside of the lake at all, and it was pothole city, and they said, if you don't fix this and trim these trees back and do this, you know, they gave them a laundry list of things to do. They weren't gonna provide any services at all over there. So usually you find that, I mean, they public noticed it and did all that. Usually it doesn't have to get to that point. Most folks look at that and say, okay, yeah, we know this tree's gotta go, and the associations will do that.
We'll deal with it.
It's a very small percentage of,
Okay.
especially in Cumberland, it's a really small percentage of roads. And there are very few out there that are just straight gravel that we do that on. Or at least they're, in comparison to some surrounding towns where they have a lot of contract plows around different bodies of water that they have residents on. But the public easement on that helps a lot.
Okay.
Because then you can get in there, get in there with the emergency vehicles that you have the right to do regardless, but at least that you want to make sure that that's there, as well as the plow trucks and things along those lines.
And then just the second part of my question was, how many roads that we have accepted have sort of had major issues with major financial implications, if any?
Anything come
We've only had one, and that was Fuller Road up off the Blackstrap. And that was a failure of a detention pond that we actually went back on the contractor because it happened during when we had money set aside in escrow to address it. That was the only time we had that type of major failure where we had to call in an escrow or where there was a major issue with the road. We've had pretty good luck with the roads that we've accepted. I think we've accepted probably, I think I looked at it today, probably 8 over the past 15 years.
Oh.
So it's not a lot.
And the 2-year escrow has been sort of enough. Like, if something is going to have a major failure, does it usually happen in the first 2 years or so?
Correct.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I think we did a really good job. I remember when Fuller Road came in, Chris, and we had concerns about that retention pond. I think you were on, Bob. Then the one right across from Cop Motors, Cumberland Autos Salvage.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yes.
but we did a really good job, I think, retaining that money so it didn't cost the taxpayers to fix it up. We were aware of it. Chris, how many private roads do we plow now?
About 10 or 12 public easements.
And why do we plow them?
Because probably back in 2002, I'll go back even further than that. There was always a lot of gentleman agreements back, I guess, really back in the day where, we're the public works director and they agreed to plow certain roads and didn't plow others. And there was just kind of went back and forth. It was one of those things where this is the way we've always done it. Back in 2002, we looked at it and we consulted the town attorneys and said, this is not really legal what we're doing, taking public infrastructure onto private roads or people onto private roads, employees, I should say. So they went through and they contacted all the private roads that we were plowing and maintaining and said, you have an option. You become fully private or you can become a public easement. And about half of them decided they wanted to be private. They take care of their own plowing, their own maintenance, and the other half became public easements. We haven't accepted any public easements except for a temporary public easement on Vining Way since.
So a lot of those that you're talking about, are they on the Forest side, like Spruce Lane?
Yes,
Do we plow Spruce Lane?
that's a public easement. A lot of them are on the Forest side and up in the west end of town, the Forest Lake area.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple things. Regarding the ability to get a fire engine down a road, are all new roads, according to our current standards, roads that will be able to allow a fire truck to come through and make turns and whatnot?
All those are generally reviewed by the fire chief, and there's and the engineer, so they look at it. As you saw, you might have seen in that little diagram that was in there, kind of showed that turnaround.
Okay.
So they'll look at that as well as the turning radius to make sure that, basically that our ladder truck could get down there if needed and can navigate and get out, more importantly.
Okay.
As well. So, yeah, Chief, usually during the staff review part of a subdivision review or a division of land review, then they'll look at that.
Okay. And then I'm thinking, obviously, we're always thinking about 1829 and potential many more roads that will be inserted into Cumberland, whether they're private or not. I think that's why it's really important to get some sort of standard before we get to that point, if we get to that point. Do you have, Chris, like some sort of formula or thing you go by to determine like length of a road, whether it's dead end, like, I don't know, footage of how many roads we have, and then what the threshold is for needing more employees to plow? Like, is there, to gauge like X amount of feet of road added, we need a person, basically?
I don't per se have a formula for that. When we look at the roads, for instance, Vining Way, when I looked at that, I do a formula to say, okay, what's it going to cost to repave this 10 years from now as part of our paving plan? So I came up with a figure of about, in 10 years, we're probably going to spend 90 to 100,000 to repave it. Yearly maintenance on the road, it's brand new, so we're not in there doing ditching and doing a lot of catch basin cleaning. So I put a formula together for how many snowstorms we might have, 10 a year, how many hours, how many trips through. I put a cost on what the truck would be per hour wear and tear. And for that road, per year is around $6,000. I just throw that out there. Some of it's real money with overtime, and out of it's just I put a value on the truck.
Right.
So other roads in the center of town that have been in the town for 60 years, like all the roads in the center of town, we do a lot of work in there. We have a lot of catch basin failures, and so we do a lot of work on those roads. Some of the newer roads, they're built to a different standard that the older roads were, so there's not as much maintenance on them, due to this standard being as good as it is. But as to look at the plow routes, we're a little strained now. We kind of look more so, how long is it taking us to do it? And what kind of quality of service do people expect for us to be? Should we be going through these roads every 2 hours? Is every 5 hours okay? So we kind of, we've reached that threshold right now where we're probably looking for another person to start plowing.
Okay.
That other person plowing might take care of us for the next 5 years. If we start adding more roads on and it takes us longer, again, we'd have to add people and trucks.
Right.
And the trucks, just like anything else, they went from costing us, $90,000 a year to almost $300,000 to replace, not a year.
So yeah, that's something like that we should keep in mind while we're figuring out what's going to be public or not. Is there connectivity to other roads that doesn't make something inefficient to plow all the way down and back again, or something like that? Because yeah, it all adds up
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Andrew?
I mean,
Oh, Andrew, then
Yeah.
to Jeff, sorry.
Jeff can go.
no, you go first. Like,
So, sort of piggybacking off of Denise's and also Bob's earlier comment, I think it would be, maybe helpful to sort of know where that threshold is. And if we're there, then we're there of, all right, we need to add another person, another truck, and sort of what that, would mean finance-wise. But more to the process side of things, the process right now, as I understand it, is planning board approval, road gets built to whatever standards, engineer inspection, yes, you did it to the standards for public road, and then it should be, to the finance committee looks at it, and then comes to the full council, and the council votes. I'm wondering if we want to move that process around so it's not something where, yep, we're expecting it, we put all this money into it, and then the council comes in and says no at the very end. And that just sort of seems like it's, kind of like with a cat toy with a cat kind of thing, like leading it along and then just yanking it out at the last second possibly. So if we should look at moving the approval earlier and basically saying having the council say yes, assuming that X, Y, and Z are actually completed, and then once those are completed, it gets approved, as opposed to making sure that X, Y, and Z are completed, and then the council will say yes or no at all.
so
Jeff and then Denise,
I guess two things.
then Bob.
First, it really, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if it's a dead-end road or a through street. Whether you, in terms of cost of plowing, it's the same either way. You gotta plow, it's actually more efficient to do a dead-end street because you go in and you go out. When it's a through street, you always go to the right because you don't put snow to the left. So you gotta go all the way back around. So it's actually irrelevant on that, in that terms. But, don't ask me how I know that, but I know that. But Aaron, I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's right for somebody to buy a house and have them sold on the fact that it's going to become a public road, put a town manager, town planner in a position of, well, yeah, we usually accept them, and then we come down to the end and we start to ask all kinds of questions. So, I mean, I'd be totally in favor of looking at the order of the procedure in a sense of, okay, you go before the planning board, you go before the council, assuming all the standards are met, and it comes out, everything checks out from an engineering perspective, we'll give it the rubber stamp at the end. I mean, to me, that makes perfect sense, and you actually kind of stole what I was thinking, so you beat me to it. So, I mean, I'd be totally in favor of that, so.
And that's kind of what I was gonna say too, is I feel like road acceptance should be just like us approving like a liquor license. Like if you've met these criteria and we have a policy or an ordinance or whatever that is specific enough that it lays out exactly whether or not you're gonna be accepted, then it comes to us and basically it's good. So whether you switch the process around or what, so that it's actually like officially approved beforehand or whatever is fine. It's just, there's a long lead. There's like, lots of money spent, lots of time building a road to not have a very clear set of standards on whether or not it would be accepted. I feel like there shouldn't be any question. So whatever we put together should cover as many scenarios as we can think of.
If I may, Madam Chair, to the prior three
Sure.
comments, which were similarly situated, I guess the leverage the town has is acceptance.
Oh.
And just thinking that through, Vining Way is a great example. When I first started here, there was a number of items that needed to be completed, that if the town didn't have the ability to hold acceptance as the final, like the finish line, so to speak, might not have had the leverage to make sure that the work was done according to the manner and effect that it needed to be done for both the residents who lived there as well as for us taking it over. So that's the final leverage point there. I mean, you could look at that and say, you could conditionally accept it perhaps at that point. However, you want to always have, you may find that those conditions during construction might change as well. So if they meet all those conditions, but yet if you didn't have certain areas that defined, then you might be hamstrung by your own process. Whereas in this case, it's like, okay, these are the, we've laid the standards out. You need to meet all of those. Engineers and inspections will take place during the whole construction process to make sure that it's done accurately and meets all of those points. And then ultimately at the end, council could look at it and then, I guess you pay your bucks and you take your chances on that and hope that as long as you've done it all in good faith, that the council ultimately will accept the road. But I think it's important for the developer or the person who's dividing that to convey that initially, and it's important for staff to also make sure that let's say the policymakers understand that that this is coming along at some point in time. Let's see, Mineral Springs is a great example of that. When it was done, the ultimate goal for that was to have it be accepted as a town road, and that's why the developer put a lot of money into the water line extension, and the town did its part to do that as well. Knowing that if they completely fail in constructing the road, that it's going to be really expensive to fix it. So they want to make sure they do it right, and then also that the town wants to make sure it's right, and ultimately when the town, if it does accept it, has a good road that, to Chris's point, you're just gonna have to wait 10 years to repave it, and hopefully you have another 30 before you need to do anything more outside of routine maintenance, storm drain cleaning, things along those lines that are your normal stuff. But I think ultimately you want to hold that leverage point above everything, because if you don't have that magic ticket, so to speak, in Willy Wonka terms, to say you can pass go. So,
Bob and then Bailey.
I think we go back to, nobody has articulated to anybody that the ultimate decision lies with the council, and you may not get an approval. Yes, the track record has been approval, and I think, the fact that we haven't done the fiscal analysis is a misstep for years. And I think that Chris can come up with a number, never mind whether it's a new subdivision or an old subdivision or where it is. I think we ought to be able to come up with a number and say, this is the cost of maintenance year to year on 100 yards or 50 feet or a quarter mile or something like that. And I think we ought to have some, in general, I'm I think, no more acceptance of public roads, but I think I'm willing to debate it and tweak the policy, but just in general, I think, I've had enough. I don't see the public benefit, except in certain occasions. So I think that's where I'd like to look at part of the discussion, and then let's tie this to the financial cost to the town.
Bailey and then Jeff.
Yeah. Quick question. Impact fees. Are we doing any type of impact fee for on new builds? So subdivision builds, are we doing any type of, we are?
There are impact fees. Roads aren't part of that, are they?
No.
Roads currently aren't part of it, but there are impact fees on new construction.
What is the the financial model of that? So like, for example, if we're putting, is it based house per house? Is it per acre? I would be more in favor of, I'm obviously in favor of allowing for new roads, but also adding some sort of impact fee to help establish a better capital fund for us. So it isn't feeling like we're being strapped with that right out the gate, right? So then that gives you a couple of years to kind of auto adjust. And I think I was just reading in Wyndham's, I don't know, whatever it was, that they do an impact fee, which essentially is they take one large impact fee. It then is dispersed amongst fire, rec, road should be one of them, whatever those kind of accounts we've established are. And I would be in favor of doing a larger impact fee for situations like that, and then some sort of impact fee for, existing builds, however we want to frame it or whatever that model is, because I think that alleviates a little of the concern you have regarding the finances. I think it does correct itself a little bit over time. I think the impact is high, but not high enough where we should be saying no. So, I don't know, just a thought.
Currently, Councilor Douglas, the impact fees are used for open space acquisition and
Okay.
Recreational facilities and open space acquisition. So that's kind of where the funds are going now.
Okay.
You can expand that if you
Yeah.
wanted to, like you said, for certain elements. The one thing you need to tie to that is that there needs to be let's say a relationship
Yeah.
between because of X, we need to do Y.
Yeah, so like per house, how are we establishing it now? Like, how are we getting to that number now if we're giving someone an impact fee? Like, what is the driver financial,
Square footage is the driver. Yeah, it's for the first 1,000 square feet, and then after that it grows. And then there
Okay.
are some exemptions, I think, if it's affordable or if it's converting,
Okay.
existing building to senior housing. There's some exemptions that are within that.
Yeah,
Oftentimes what you find with impact fees, you have to track the pennies.
yeah,
That's all, to make sure that, and you have to use them within a certain period of time.
okay,
Which generally isn't too much of a problem, because there's only so many dollars available in life in general. So, but you could expand that as long as you knew that you had some needs. You could look at that and say, yeah, we can look at that for roads, for
yeah,
for fire, for any of those different things that you have to, like, because we put in 72 houses in this neighborhood.
yeah,
We need to add an additional fire apparatus or another ambulance over on the west side, so to speak, so.
But you could do that by
could do it on-
frontage.
Yeah.
Street frontage, so for the rec, you've got
Yeah.
per square foot because you assuming the X number of people are gonna be using rec stuff and all. And for this, it would just be, road frontage of X number of feet equals this amount kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of
then-
different ways to I guess you could say, to quantify it and monitor it, that could be done.
yeah. I would almost say to your point that it needs to be used in a certain period of time. It's like we could even do it on from certificate of occupancy date on a rolling 3-year or whatever, to ensure that we're getting funds regularly and not having to exhaust them in a certain period of time. But just a thought.
Well, it's like a conversation about growth,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not, right? Like,
Yeah.
what we're really talking about is managing all of our growth in the face of 1829 and the things
Yeah.
that are going to be changing, right?
Yeah.
So how do we want to kind of approach that as a larger strategy, right?
Yeah. I agree.
It's probably good that we're talking about this right now. Did you have something, Jeff?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I guess, in terms of acceptance and financial burden on the town, I do want to help our citizens out.
Yeah.
And but I can't predict what's going to happen in the future. And, let's face it, $300 for a plow truck, and by the time you're all said and done with salary and benefits, you're probably $75,000 for an employee. The year may come where we don't have almost 400,000 for whatever reason to make some budget happen. I mean, I think, having a, way to not accept it for a year or whatever through our policy makes sense. Hopefully, we're never in that financial picture, but none of us have a crystal ball. In terms of the impact fee, part of me thinks, what do we charge per linear foot? Right to the developer. If you want to build this subdivision, then, it's X amount of dollars per linear foot of the road, and that's what you're going to have to pay to play, so to say. I mean, let's face it, nobody's building a subdivision on a non-profit basis. Everyone's going to make money on it, or at least that's the hope, and very rarely do you not. So, why not get a piece of the pie up front and use it, like you said, Councilor Douglas, to, try to put things in perspective and move forward in the right direction.
Madam Chair, one of the items from 1829, I think they've also, eliminated growth fees as an option. So Cumberland has impact fees, they also have growth fees, and growth fees are like $100 per building permit that comes in based on what the permit is
Yeah.
for. So you may just want to, you may convert to impact
Yeah,
fees eventually.
I think
and
we
just
should,
say
yeah.
That'd be the area to house it in. We just want to make sure that, we'll just have to look at the fine details of 1829 and see where that, what direction we can get from that as well. Bill that keeps on giving.
You're talking about road footage and all of that, and then also with what you'd said before, Matt, about, you said square foot of the house, the build itself, right? Because
That's
that
what-
kind of
that's what
gives you
I
an idea of how many vehicles they might have. Like,
Yeah.
the more people in the house, you probably, maybe you're using more vehicles, or, but with impact fees for commercial developments, do they have their own for wear and tear on roads, like driving massive trucks down Middle Road and there's just like a sea of potholes? Like, it's clear that some roads are being worn down more than others, and so I'm curious whether we have.
I think
Commercial fees for-
it's driven by residential use, not commercial.
So if we have a business coming in with massive equipment,
Lucas Tree.
well, yes, them too. There's no differentiation between them and like a restaurant or anything as far as any sort of fees or anything assessed to them, knowing that they are going to cost us more on roads. Is it just, we're kind of like balancing it out,
Yeah, it's, it's
part
it's
of
not
the,
captured.
part of the package?
Yes, ma'am.
Wouldn't that sort of be excise tax that we're
Right,
getting?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
excise is
Yeah.
huge on, like,
That makes
on
sense.
a larger commercial vehicle, it's different than a residential, residential vehicle, although those numbers are still pretty high.
And then one more thing, I know it was brought up a couple times with the Vining Way, was the compaction testing for the height. Is that something that we need to include as far as if you have this much base or whatever, you need to compact this many times with this large of a roller or whatever, so that we can, confirm that this is compacted properly? Or
That-
is that like an issue enough? Or I know the slope was somewhat rare, so hopefully we won't see one of those again, but is that just something that we need to cover our bases on?
See, a lot of this, I think, there's that, I guess you could say that symbiotic or partnership relationship that exists between the planning board and the development review process, and ultimately when it gets to the council level. Whereas, they lay it out on paper or the developer lays it out on paper what they want to do. Planning board goes through it, reviews it, the peer review, the engineers will take a look at that and determine if that works, and then, if it passes, let's say on paper, and says, okay, you know, if you do exactly as you have designed, this should work fine, and then from there you go to deployment and the construction of it, and then, so it may be a question of us as staff or the town setting as part of its policy that based on the level or the depth of what the road-based construction is going to be, we need to have compaction tests from the date of entry until the date of final construction for the different levels of,
Yep.
of gravel that is needed to be placed there. Yeah, Vining Way is an extreme example of a difference. Oftentimes what you're looking at is, you know, it's a cut and fill, or, you know, they're removing all that and then putting in the road base and building it from there. So, but that was I think that's a good learning moment to look at that and say, okay, on the go forward, you need to have testing at all layers depending upon. So that's something that may want to have more, I guess, specific language of in the ordinance.
Is there a world, so if we were to change up the process and do like that conditional approval that was at the early phase, is there a way, to what you were saying, Bob, about like what's in it for the public interest, right? And so if there is in this, you know, the example that you said, this particular road development could be a great point of access for the trail network, right? Up front, is there a possibility of having those negotiations directly, like with the developer to say, look, like, you want to do this, then this is what we're going to ask you to do. I don't know if that's even legal or not, but like in a similar vein with Mineral Springs, right? Like, I don't remember where exactly the water discussion came in, but is there a way we can sort of like property by property, or sorry, like subdivision by subdivision, look at it as a council and say, like, is there anything that we want to add into this particular space? And then, is that legal? Is that reasonable? Is that
Yeah, I mean,
possible?
you can do, they call them exactions, that the planning board oftentimes can do, and just say, well, you know, we like what you're planning here, but we think this would be better served if there was a sidewalk. So you know, it needs to be, it needs to, I think, in many ways, pass the reasonable test, or make sense, like a better, more technical way to, the make sense test.
Yeah.
It's kind of when you look at that, it's like, okay, if you're putting X amount of homes in here, you're gonna need a way to move people on their feet from this point to this point, because they might be, let's say they want to go to the Rusty Lantern and they're living over here in Mineral Springs. If they didn't have a wide shoulder, then you'd probably say, okay, well, we need to have a sidewalk here. In that case as well, you know, they added maybe a half a mile of water line that the town didn't have to put in, that now supplies, you know, half a dozen houses that had poor water quality before, perhaps. So they might have the ability to use municipal water. So there was kind of a trade-off that exists there. But oftentimes it's a conversation that you want to have at the start of the process, because you know, I guess you could say the new residents, or the residents that'll be going into where that new road is being developed, they have an anticipation of future benefits by being part of the community. And it's important for the developer to convey that, well, I'm building this to a public road standard. It's significantly more important to build it to a public road standard than it is to at a private road standard. So they're putting more into the ground, so to speak, than if they were building it, you know, with a 36-foot right of way and 2 9-foot travel lanes. Now they've gone, you know, they're giving up more land because they're doing a 50 or 60-foot right of way, depending upon the amount of volume. And so that also could reduce the number of lots that they could put in there, or the amount of frontage, things along those lines. There's a give and take when it comes to it, that they may be giving up a certain amount of profit, but also gaining a sense of marketability or attractiveness to the market if folks want to do that. The other folks who they'll build a private development, and people like to have the fact they live on a private road and have an HOA and take care of it that way. They'll think it's great until that 10 years comes around, they want to repave it, and it's $100K, and that's usually when things start to get a little interesting. And then the other part, experience has shown me that when you do have, when we have had private roads that have failed in the past in certain towns, the town has an interest in making sure that, you know, or let's just say, they will come to the council and say, or the manager, or the public works director and say, you know, we just lost this culvert and it swept out our road, we really need some help on this, and we don't have any funds to get this done. And you know, and then they look at the town as the, let's say, the bank of last resort to fix it. And I've seen towns do that just because they're residents and they need to do it, but then, you know, it's a whole other kettle of fish. But that I've seen historically that happen as well. So you inherit it one way or the other.
Andrew, then Bob.
So, but with the sort of the conditional acceptance, if we went that route, that would still give us the leverage if we went as sort of planning board, we accept, road gets built, or we conditionally accept, road gets built, and then we have, you know, the independent engineer go in and make sure that, like, yes, all these things that we said you needed to do, you actually did do, because that still gives us the leverage to do that. Would we also be able to, like, if we looked at, if we added impact fees per, you know, linear foot of frontage or something like that, would we be able to use that as a lever to incentivize affordable housing being built? Because if we're adding more fees, then that's just going to mean that the sale price of whatever house is going to be higher, and it's, you know, we're just incentivizing them to build more expensive housing. And, you know, I think there's been a lot of talk about wanting to add affordable housing, not more expensive housing, all the time. Could we use that as a lever to say it is X amount for per linear square foot, unless you have X percentage, 50%, 75%, whatever, affordable housing as defined by, you know, whatever the definition is, then it's, you know, we waive that fee kind of thing. And then we, as a town, sort of go back to what we've been doing of just eating the costs as is, as opposed to trying to have some other incentive in there. Can we, is that an acceptable way to sort of use that, or is there some law or you know, that would prohibit us from doing that? Sort of along the lines of, like, we want you to build a sidewalk because it's going to connect these two places that have sidewalks, so you need to build that to get accepted.
Sure. I think that'd be worth taking a look at. On the other side, to consider too, is that 1829 allows a significant reduction in the base lot size. So all of a sudden you're making it not needing as much land to build an affordable lot, and an affordable lot has significant reductions in lot size that you need out of 1829 and 2000 LD 2003 combination. That's much more of an incentive than it would be to waiving, you know, unless you really got some serious money on an impact fee or a lineal foot fee for development. Excuse me. So I think the land itself makes it much more attractive, just because the per unit cost is so much less, or they can get so much more on, like, let's say it was a 40,000 square foot lot, where before you could get maybe 2 units, whereas now you could get possibly 8 or more on that if it was 5,000 square foot. So there's, I think the lot size is the bigger driver when it would come to that. So you may be working against yourself if you, because the road frontage wouldn't be great enough to do that on a per lot basis.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's frontage or square footage or
Yeah.
whatever it is, whatever we have for, if we did go with an impact fee, whatever we did for that, would we be able to use that as a lever to say it's an impact fee of X amount for whatever, unless you have, you know, 25%, 50%, 70%, whatever the number is, affordable as defined by, you know, in this new subdivision.
Yeah, it'd be worth taking a look at and seeing if that would jive. I probably want to talk to one of our JDs about that, just to see. But it's a good concept.
Bob, and then Jeff?
I think before we have to close it down, a couple of things. I think if we all said, or if I said, I propose a motion to not accept any more town roads, it wouldn't go anyplace. I think if we proposed a motion that we limit the acceptance of town roads, we might have a few more votes there. And I think if we had a motion that said, let's just continue things the way they are, I don't think that would be unanimous either. But I think there is some work that we can do to maybe negotiate how we go forward. One of which is if we look at the ordinance the way it's written and we practice what we haven't been doing and look at a financial point of view,
That's big.
where is the extraction, your ability for extraction there? And that might be something the town staff could come back up with, or the town attorney, or something so that there's some meat for us to review. You know, we're not just gonna rubber stamp this. And then I think there's an opportunity for us to, I think with Tig's proposal there, and I seem to think that might be where the consensus is with all of us is can we get something more upfront that is more beneficial?
Mike?
I usually have pretty good, strong feelings, one way or the other, on issues, and I gotta tell you, right in the middle of the road on this, I really took Denise value of what you said. Look, if they build it, we should accept it, and they do it. But Bob, can you give me the Cliff Note version of why you think we shouldn't accept any more? I really am interested, Bob, because I wanna get your side of this.
Staffing. Every time you add more roads, so as you build out the community, it's more trucks, it's more staffing, it's more of everything. And if I thought I could have a cost benefit that lowered my taxes, you know, in the long run, I think I'd be right on board with that. But I don't see that happening, and I don't see the affordability. You know, nobody's jumping in here to build affordable homes which I can get behind. And without that piece, I'm not enthusiastic about, encouraging more development in the community.
Good, thanks, Bob.
Jeff?
I know we're not gonna solve this tonight, but I wanted to mention one thing is, our road construction standards are built on 2003 standards. Since then, there's been 3 to 4 revisions. And from doing some quick reading, there's changes of slopes and compaction, so if we're gonna continue moving forward, I think we need to look at our standards, so.
Do we want to do maybe a part 2, or we can also revisit during new business tonight on our next steps and what's kind of reasonable to everybody? Does that work? But I think the finance committee taking a look at all of the roads is a great first step that we can just start doing right now, because we don't even have to do anything, right? It's just adding it to the agendas, yeah? Is that cool with you?
Yeah.
Does everyone want like a 3-minute recess before?
3-minute recess.
All right, we'll take a 3-minute recess and then we'll get moving. No? All right. Text your mother. Okay, sweet.
Ready to go.
We're ready to go. All right. Okay, wonderful. Hello, everybody. It is Monday, February 9th, 2026. At 6 o'clock, we had a workshop on road acceptance standards. It was wildly exciting. I urge everyone to check it out. It is now 7 o'clock, so we're going to call ourselves to order. First up, we have the approval of minutes from the January 28th, 2026 meeting.
I give you a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Okay, cool beans. Next up, we have our manager's report. What is happening, Mr. Sturgis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, all. Good to see everybody this evening. Happy February. I have some great news to start off this evening's manager's report. I'm pleased to share outstanding news from our Parks Department. Frank Smith, our Parks Department Assistant Superintendent, has been selected as a member of the World Cup Pitch Management Team. And I made sure I said that properly. For the upcoming World Cup games that are going to be taking place in Foxborough this summer. So it's an amazing honor for Frank. He was one of only 30 individuals chosen from a pool of hundreds. So it's an amazing honor. It's a lot of work, but I did not know this till Frank was telling me. They have removed the turf out of the stadium, and they have been growing grass for a year and a half. So they're going to be putting all that in, and they'll be doing the painting of the lines and doing all that stuff on a daily basis in and out. So it's a huge honor, but we're really proud of Frank for doing that. And,
Well done, Frank.
So super cool for
Oh,
him.
Frank.
So do we get tickets?
Why are you gonna make it about you?
Yeah.
I said we.
Nah.
I'll be there.
I have no comment on that one, Counselor, but I can make a call
I'll
for
send
you.
you pictures.
Budget season is fully underway. Department heads and our
Probably.
leadership team are meeting to review the following. Obviously, our department budgets, current and projected expenses, revenue forecast, capital needs for the upcoming fiscal year. And these collaborative reviews are helping us ensure a thoughtful planning and alignment across operations as we move towards funding the next fiscal year's budget and getting it ready for the council to review. Updating and recruiting of the hiring process has taken an update. Our HR staff has completed a review and a refinement of the town's recruiting process for new hires, and updated materials have now been distributed to all the departments. The goal of this is to ensure that every department fully understands each step of the hiring process. Vacancies can be filled more efficiently and quickly. New employees experience a streamlined, consistent, and welcoming onboarding process. And we're hoping that this is going to support a stronger coordination and improved overall hiring outcome townwide. Strong start to the year for our code enforcement department. Their numbers have been coming in strongly. Did I say strong more than once? Bill's been doing a great job. The code enforcement officer is reporting a very robust start to the year, with building permits more than doubling over January 2025 levels. That's been helped by a couple of higher value new home permits off Harris Road. But that's a great start to our early construction permit activity. Prince Memorial Library update. For residents seeking entertainment options, now that football season has ended, sadly, the Prince Memorial Library continues to offer a rich menu of programming. Highlights include game night this Friday night. That's going to be from 5 to 7:30 p.m. But if you're looking for something on the weekly basis, a couple of examples are that there's a knitting group for those so inclined on Wednesdays at 1. There's a bridge group that plays on Fridays at 1. And then there's a whole other menu of different options that are available through now and through March, available online. The PML continues to be a vibrant hub for community activities and multi-generational engagement, and we're grateful for all the work they do over there. A scam alert. This is important. We've had a couple of items that have popped up on our radar, sadly, over the past couple of weeks, and they're very concerning to us as the town. We've been notified of scammers posing as municipal officials attempting to solicit fraudulent payments. So we've had at least 2 in the past 2 weeks that have come through. I just want to remind residents that the town of Cumberland will never, and that's capital never underlined, ask for funds via a wire transfer. That's just not how we operate. We also don't deal in Bitcoin. So keep that in mind. If they're asking for either
We don't?
one, not yet.
Oh.
We're still working with cash and checks, so we're hopeful that works. Any email requesting a wire transfer, an urgent change of payment method, or an immediate fee is a scam. So verify the sender's email address. If you're getting something from the town of Cumberland, our emails always end with @townofcumberlandmaine.gov. So that's a little tester you can use. But when in doubt, please call us directly. We've had, luckily, both folks that we caught mid-scam knew and had a good relationship with Christina and asked why are we looking for X amount of dollars from them, and how do I wire it to you? And so that's been good that we've had relationships, but at the same time, we don't have relationships with everybody, and not everybody is up to speed to what these scammers are up to, and they are very good. Vigilance ultimately is the key in preventing fraud. And then the last item I have is that, just a reminder that this coming Monday is President's Day, and we wish happy birthday to President Washington and President Lincoln, and we will be closed that day. So, but otherwise, our normal operations will resume on Tuesday. So that's my manager's report, Madam Chair.
Great.
Whoever's idea it was to make like a real onboarding, streamlined onboarding, 2 thumbs up. That's like, having a crappy onboarding experience at a new job is a great way to kill morale and make you not want to be there. So having it uniform between departments, first of all, having it, answer all the questions they could have, get them to meet everyone, like that is so critical for retention. So appreciated.
Thank you. We've got some great folks to do it, and continuous CQI, Councilor Thorson, continuous quality improvement.
Indeed.
That's what we're going for. So thank you.
Yep. Anyone else have anything for Mr. Sturgis? Okie dokie. Next up, we have the public discussion portion of our night. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for further council discussion. Is there anyone here who would like to come up and talk or chit chat? We could talk about chickens if you want.
Oh my God.
Okay, I've just got the stink eye. All right, I will close public discussion then, and we will move into legislation and policy. Also, as part of legislation and policy is the opportunity for public comment per Article 2, Section 7 of the Town Charter. There will be the opportunity for public comment on each item on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. 26-013, to hear a report from the tax assessor re-evaluation update and timeline. Welcome, Clint. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Happy Monday.
Just the best.
Okay, this thing's on. Yes, so councilors and Mr. Sturgis, thank you for having me. I'll be as brief as I can, but always you guys can stop me at any time and ask questions. The public can certainly, so few of us, you can certainly ask questions if you have any. But yeah, I'd like to go over the current revaluation process, where we are, and highlight some items for you. Things we're going to go over tonight. We're going to look at the real estate sales ratios. We're going to look at 2025 as a whole. I also want to look at Redfin sales analysis. It's always good to get a third party's view of what your market's doing. We're also going to talk about valuation of gravel pits and commercial and industrial properties. Talk about business personal property and how we're going to change how we value our personal property post-reval. And we're also going to talk about the informational letters that we sent out. So it sounds like a lot. It really isn't a lot, but certainly ask me any questions as we go along. Last year, basically, our sales ratio for the whole year was an average of 49%. You can see that month by month they go up and down, but at the end of the year, it's right around 49%. And what that means is, I've got properties assessed here, and they're selling for 50% more. That's why we're doing the reval. See if we can get those guys leveled up. The Redfin. I got online and started poking around. Found that, Redfin says that our median sale price for a home is about $785,000. My numbers are a little less than that, around, 740, 750. But it's in the same ballpark. Also, the price per square foot is around $372 a square foot, and that's up around 16% from the previous year. Yes, Counselor?
The square foot, two questions. The main multiple today was 802 for average sale price.
Yep.
And,
Always a
but-
moving target.
Yes. When you say square foot cost, that's a real misnomer to everybody. Do we include garages, decks, porches, basements, attics, or are we just taking, when you say square foot cost, is that just the foundation?
What we're looking at there is mostly just residential living area. All the garages, the decks, the sheds, they all have their own price per square foot. That's often established through national cost manuals like Marshall and Swift, and cost manuals that call that out. But yeah, most of the price per square foot is residential living area.
Land is not included in that.
No. Looking at other things that Redfin has pointed out, they say that homes are selling for about 4% higher than their asking price. I, as the assessor, would have no way of knowing that information, so it's kind of interesting to pull that down from a third-party vendor. And they say that houses are on the market for an average of 18 days. So this really is the hotbed of real estate sales here in the area. I saw a chart. I didn't include it in this presentation, but of all the neighborhood communities of Portland, we're the top dog as far as where people want to live. So it's a good place to be.
Hey, Clint?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, just one question. So, knowing that you spent a lot of your career at Cape, and who's kind of a similar type of, quiet little community, not a ton of commercial, like, are they sort of around the same, not that you're looking at their numbers, but like, are we kind of consistent with what you might see at Cape, or are we more of like, at this point, like like, who are we? It's hard to do like apples and oranges, right? Because Yarmouth and Falmouth are obviously very different than Cumberland. But would you say that we are on for the size of our community and the amount of commercial that we have, and I guess proximity to Portland, would we be kind of the most similar to Cape, or would we be most similar to a different community?
Yeah, I would say we're probably most similar to Cape. I mean, both communities have, ocean properties. Both communities have, older established neighborhoods. We've got some retail, commercial, and industrial. Not very much. Cape doesn't have very much either. I'm sure Matt can, echo those comments. They're very similar to Cape. Both, well-established communities. Both high-value communities. So,
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd almost say the diversity of the tax rate, of the tax base is comparable.
Okay.
Whereas you're probably 90, residential and, I mean, or let's say actually maybe 80% residential, maybe 15% open space, so to speak, as far as value paradigm goes, and then maybe 5% commercial, whereas a town that's like Yarmouth, Falmouth, a lot more commercial. So if I'm catching your drift properly, Madam Chair, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it might be a good opportunity for Mr. Sweat to talk about if there's any kind of anticipated shift between commercial to residential as far as when a revaluation goes. Am I reading that?
You
tea
are.
leaves correct?
Yep.
So maybe if you want to touch on that, Clint.
Yep,
as far as-
actually, when we get closer to the personal property trending section, we can discuss that. So it's coming up.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. Excuse me. Yeah, the revaluation is, if you think of it as a giant homework assignment, and there's always parts of the homework assignment that you really need to work on. And right now, part of my assignment is to come up with a valuation for gravel pits, work on our commercial and industrial properties, and come up with values for those. And that's not an easy thing to do. You just can't walk up to a gravel pit and figure out what its value is. So with me and Jim Thomas, who is our consultant, we're working on questionnaires, income and expense questionnaires. We need to find out more information about the gravel pits, what they're pulling out, what the economic remaining life of the gravel pit is. So we're just now getting those letters fine-tuned and getting ready to send them out. So that'll take some time. And then as just a little training for you folks, there are 3 approaches to value. There's the income approach, market approach, and cost approach. The income approach is basically wanting to get income and expense reports from a commercial building to find out, what that property is really valued at based on the cost to run the building, rents you're getting, leasehold improvements, stuff like that. Business personal property. In Cumberland, we have a little over 100 personal property accounts. And personal property is basically, if you own a business, anything you bring into that empty building, shelves, tables, cash registers, computers, anything you bring into that building is taxable. Not my idea. It's the state of Maine. So we have to tax these businesses, and nobody likes it more than me. Did I say that with a straight face? So anyway, these properties, there are several ways you can value them, and one of them is just straight line depreciation of the assets based on their age, and then you assign a mill rate to them and you tax them. Another way, you can do what's called trending, where you take an old asset and using the U.S. federal government consumer price index, you trend those original costs up to today's dollars, and then you depreciate them down. It gives you a little more, taxable value on the other side. The state of Maine, they don't care if we trend data or if we trend the assets or if we don't trend, as long as we're consistent. I've worked in many towns. I know Freeport, they trend data. South Portland, they trend data. Brunswick does not. Cape Elizabeth does not. So really, it's a mixed bag of who does and who doesn't trend the data. So we're going to trend our data going forward. This will give a little more personal property taxable base for the town. Any questions on that? Oh, yeah, I know what I was going to say. Sorry about that. I wanted to, because I knew we were going to get a question about, the impacts of the reval based on commercial and industrial and those types of properties. If you just look at the personal property numbers, here in Cumberland, we have about 100 properties that pay personal property taxes. In Falmouth, they have 532 accounts. North Yarmouth has 194. Yarmouth has 462. So you can kind of see that, we're not going to be impacted by any kind of shift from residential to commercial or industrial because the number is just too small here in Cumberland. When we look at last year's taxable values, our personal property was less than 1% of the tax base. So there's not going to be a big shift. Yes.
Do these include like small businesses or home-based businesses? What all does this include? Or is this just like commercially zoned property?
Mostly just small businesses. If it's a business that's run out of a home, and they don't have a whole lot of assets, we're not gonna shake them down. So mostly it's just small businesses.
And with moving to trending, it sounds like basically when you're bringing it up to today's values, it's higher than it was when they originally bought it. So I'm thinking if it's like less than 1% of what we're bringing in, is it worth squeezing out a little more from them if it might make it more difficult for them to make their business continue to work here? Like, what is the price difference in reality to one of these businesses if you go straight line versus like trending?
Yeah, it's not going to be a big difference. They're not going to get a big sticker shock on it. The reason we're doing it now is, well, first of all, there really is no good time to do it. But if you're going to do a revaluation, that's kind of the best time to do it. So, so that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
Councilor Thorson, to your question too, it also kind of helps you capture like the concept of value in use versus value in exchange, as well as on certain items that Clint taxes from the on the personal property side. It's a fairly aggressive depreciation that goes into that. So a lot of stuff gets flat, like computers and software gets flatlined down to about 10% in a very rapid window. But the value still may be there. Even if you trend it, you're still depreciating the heck out of it, versus, say, a bricks and mortar home, which is very slowly, it's a 50-year life on that. So you're talking about 2% per year in theory, and then you adjust that if there's renovation work and things along those lines that take place. So it kind of balances the field a little bit for that personal property in comparison to your real estate valuation. So it kind of keeps them both on a level playing field.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, this isn't really relevant, but so the exemption doubled this year, right? From 25 to 50,000 is now the exemption on personal property as of April 1, right? So does that matter at all? Are we running off of since we run off of a different calendar year, does you know what I'm trying to say? Does that impact us at all, or does it not matter? Is it irrelevant?
It shouldn't matter. It's just based
Okay.
on like all the exemptions that we do have will get maxed out. So
Okay.
it'll be a benefit to all who do benefit from homestead exemption, blind exemption, veterans exemption, paraplegic vet exemption. All of those will get adjusted up back to full value. So there'll be a big benefit there. Also, reimbursement that comes to the town
Yeah.
will be impacted as well in a positive way.
Okay.
Yep. And also, my strategy going forward is every couple of years, I want to revisit the values and possibly, trend them along to keep to keep our exemptions at 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good strategy. It's better than waiting every 10 years and then
Big
you know,
shift.
everyone gets a big
Yeah.
kick upside the head. So nobody wants that. So that's trending. The townwide informational letter, that went out. Once again, I want to thank Whitney for helping me get that together and get it out. I've received a lot of calls, a lot of emails, a lot of minor changes, but I'll take them. You know, I love getting a phone call. You know, hey, I've got 3 bedrooms and not 4. Or I've got 2.5 bathrooms instead of 3, and it's just so much easier to sit at my computer and make the fixes. So that really worked out well. Also got a lot of people who are not computer savvy. They got the letter, come into my office, sit down, let's go over the property. So it really worked out well for the community, I think. Yes, this slide I imported from my previous update because it's that important. Just because your valuation increases doesn't mean your taxes are going to increase or double. It all depends on, it depends on the percentage of change in your neighborhood. And we also have other balls in the air that we're juggling that we don't have the answers to yet, such as the budgets. Hopefully they'll be finalized sometime in May, and that will help me to get an estimated mill rate, because that's part of the mill rate. It's the budget divided by the town's value. Also, the values will decrease the tax rate. Hopefully, we'll go from 2518 to around $10 or $15 a thousand. I don't have my crystal ball yet because we're not quite there yet. Also, I'm still doing building permits and gathering new valuation from Bill Longley's building permits that he's spinning out every day. So it's an ongoing process. And also the new valuation letters, once we're finished, will go out hopefully by the beginning of summer. And that way everyone can have time to review them and come in and talk to me about them. So here's the timetable, and this also is from the last update. Property inspections and field reviews are ongoing. Valuation determination, we're still crunching numbers, looking at neighborhoods, trying to figure out the sweet spot for the values. Get those notices out in the mail. May, could be June, but we'll get them out. And then there's a great picture of me there. You guys can come in and talk to me about the process, and we can go from there. And then the tax bills go out, and we start the whole process again. And that is all I have to say. And I'll entertain any questions, if there are any.
Me? Just another curiosity question. If permit is issued, when do we start getting tax payments from a building? So for example, if we get is it when we get a certificate of occupancy, or like when in this cycle are we starting to see income from that? Or is it like once the permit is pulled, are we getting taxes from them?
That's a great question. If you think of April 1st
Yep.
as a snapshot in time, okay? If you pull a building permit, let's say January 1st, you pulled a permit for a new house, and you're digging the foundation and you're putting things up. What I do as the assessor is I'll go out, probably the end of March, beginning of April, and see what's on the ground. And if I get out there and I see a foundation and just some framing, it's not tight to weather, you know, I'll go out there and figure out a percentage of completion. Could be, you know, 25% complete. And then I'll go back to my office, figure out, based on the plans and the square footage, what the building would be as completed, and then you get assessed for 25% of that. And then you know, when Bill and I go out for the final CO, that new value, I can't apply that retroactively, so that the new value goes on the next fiscal year cycle.
Okay,
So that's how that works.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Andrew, then Denise.
So you said in some of our lovely discussion about roads and public versus private roads, do you have an idea of what the impact is on house value of living on a private road versus a public road? Is there any sort of discernible, you know, it's between X and Y %, you know, good or bad?
The buying public tells me what the value is based on what they buy the house for. You know, you have two identical houses, one's on a dirt road, one's on a nice town accepted road. You know, one property could sell for, you know, X number of dollars more based on the improved road. So it, you know, the market tells me what its value is. But no, I haven't done any paired sales to figure out, you know, it adds X number of value.
Or
So.
X % value or anything like that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking at the timeline, it looks like valuation will be done by April. I'm thinking of the budget timeline as far as we'll be dealing with our budget and so will the school. And will the school have access to this information during or before their budget process as far as what the impact of revaluation may have on whatever proportion of our residents who you know, people might be having an increase more than we expect rather than the, you know, third. So will they have this information going into theirs so that they can see clearly what we might be up against as far as, you know, trim your budget more? Or is this going to be, I just want to make sure that we're all communicating and we're all very aware of our situation, not at the end of the budget process, but throughout.
I think the safest approach to that would be looking at current values and current tax rates, and then looking at what your percentage change year over year would be. So let's say that we know that the town of Cumberland's going to add, let's say, $15 million in new value. So we'd look at last year's committed value, add 15 to that, and use that as the denominator in that fraction, and then what the town's, you know, for instance, for what, you know, for our end of the hallway, we'd look at what our net to be raised would be, and then divide that by it, and look at our overall growth of what our net budgetary number looks like. So if we know that the town's going up 2.5%, 3%, something along those lines over last year to this year, then those numbers aren't fluid. It's just a question of how that, A, how the mill rate changes, and B, how much each individual property sits in relationship to it, to the mean. So if Clint says that, you know, the median assessment or the average assessment is 49% in town, or let's say you say the median was 49?
Yeah.
So that's like the dead smack middle. So if you are, let's say, at 40%, and that 49% is the median, that person who's at 40% is going to feel, and then versus their neighbor across town, or let's say someone across town who is assessed at, let's say, 58% of market value. So the fellow or the person who's at 58% is going to see their taxes come down as a result of the reval, and the 40% person is going to be seeing theirs go up. So that's another part of the equation. So I guess ultimately you look at bottom line, what the net's gonna be for the town as well as the school number. So that really is where the rubber hits the road as far as saying, okay, well, we know our net from last year to this year is so much, so we anticipate the impact on the tax rate is gonna be this amount. And then, the rest of it's just changing that bottom number, once Clint gets that updated value. And North Yarmouth's doing the same, at the same time. So that's one of the, if you're gonna find any kind of silver lining, at least the two towns in the school district are implementing revaluations at the same time. So at least that's level playing field, excuse me, when it comes to that. But probably the cleanest way to look at that is to not even think about the reval when it comes to the budget process. Just look at that and say expenses and revenues are gonna be this, and how are we gonna make that come into a nice conservative budget overall, because that, if the fundamentals of that are sound, then the end result is just, it's just math, really. It's just a big fraction at the end. So the hard work's gonna be getting from where we are now to budget adoption on the town side. And then, if the scary part comes into when the first numbers come out, and let's say, you're currently, your house is assessed at $400,000, and it comes out and it's $800,000 with the new reval. And then what people will invariably do will go and look at the 25-18 tax rate and say, oh my gosh,
Right, then the mill rate's gonna go
just
down.
went crazy on me. So, went from 10 grand to 20 grand, so to speak. So that's not the case, but it's all in messaging at that point. It's like,
Right.
okay,
Right.
looking at what your value is, know that mill rate's gonna change and do it. But, yeah, it's a tough one, but the foundation of what the budgetary process is still, those fundamentals are still the same.
Okay, I know the project won't be complete till August, according to this timeline, so it's still not, the full effect won't be felt yet. I don't know if there's any way that the different parties can have in mind all the things that are gonna be hitting people at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just be like, well, budget process is whatever this year, like, then we'll see those effects, next year or whenever, and then deal with it. It's kind of like, it just sounds like what you're saying is we really don't have any actionable information for this
And
budget
it's
season.
and it's tough because, I've got, I did an Excel spreadsheet last week. I've got almost 300 building permits to go look at. That's decks, sheds, additions. Bill has been a busy boy, so I have to get out there and put a tape measure on all that stuff. I'd like to say, I'll have those numbers next week, but it's going to be usually around the beginning or the middle of July is when I get done with that homework assignment. So we're doing the best we can.
I know you are. I'm just trying to
Oh, yeah.
temper my own expectations of
Yeah.
what info we'll have, what we can actually do about any of this.
Yeah,
If there's, because there will be some people, that have a really hard time with this, and the school, all the stuff that's coming down the line. Just trying to figure out if there are ways to soften that, or, and I don't want to talk about the school, but the main driver of the budget, having kind of like a figure of like the average human in town, what they're going to be facing, and then kind of letting that drive decisions on what to cut. But
The scary part to what you're thinking is, if you provide a lower than or if you provide false anticipation. So if we came out and said, well, through the budget process, and we're looking at, after the reval, the mill rate's going to be like $10, and it actually comes in at $12.50. That's a 25% increase above what people were anticipating. So you want to make sure you hit kind of, and it's hard. I mean, the messaging is really hard because you want to make sure, because I've seen it happen both ways. It's like, oh, well, the reval is going to come in, and our numbers are going to double, but our tax rate's going to cut in half, and everything's going to be great. Well, it's going to be great for some, and again, like that, there's going to be, and then the other part that comes into it too is that, folks are going to say, well, my taxes, they still went up. Well, the budget process still went on. So, you're still going to have an increase that, I mean, in theory, a person may, if everything stays the same, and, if your value doubles, the mill rate tumbles in half, and everyone's assessed at the same level, even if that tax rate goes up by 5%, or the level of spending net to be raised goes up by 5%, that person's still going to have, or a person's still going to have at least that 5% factor that's going to go
Right.
in there. So, say, well, my taxes went up by 5%. Well, yeah, that's what the budget process set, and
Yeah.
that's really hard to segregate that concept. And but again, I think it'll be important for Clint to put out that it's value that he's working on, and then the taxes are a whole other
Right.
thing, and it's revenue neutral. So it's not like the town, the school, and both towns and the school are going to have this massive windfall of cash, because
Right.
it's revenue neutral. You're not generating a lot more money that's filling the town's coffers.
That's why Bailey needs to get council chambers sponsored.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Well, based on the ads yesterday, Coinbase has got a lot of free money to sponsor stuff with. Good
My
Lord.
favorite was the manscaper,
Oh my
the
gosh.
talking piles of hair. But we can stop talking about this now. It's fine.
Other questions for Clint?
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. All right.
I've written all over everything.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. I will inform everyone at home that our town manager is also a former assessor. So if you have any questions, you have multiple resources at Town Hall to come and talk to. Okay, 26-014, to authorize the Cumberland Police Department to submit an application to the Department of Justice for a grant in the amount of $14,930 to support the acquisition of locative technology and the associated training for departmental personnel. Thanks for being here, Mindy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Council members, the Cumberland Police Department would like to apply for a DOJ grant to support the acquisition of locative technology and the associated training for departmental personnel. The department has previously responded to incidents involving missing and wandering individuals, and we believe this technology would significantly enhance public safety within the community. To support this effort, the department intends to become a member agency of Project Lifesaver, an internationally recognized search and rescue program utilized by public safety agencies. Project Lifesaver is specifically designed to assist individuals at risk of wandering due to cognitive conditions such as autism, Alzheimer's disease, or dementia, with a primary mission of facilitating rapid response to help save lives and reduce the risk of injury for both adults and children. Several agencies in Cumberland County are also members. This funding opportunity does not require cost-sharing match from the town. I probably should have led with that. We would be asking for $14,930, which includes training and equipment for startup, as well as 20 of the receiver kits for families who wish to enroll. The agency owns the equipment. It is not loaned, leased, or subject to recall by Project Lifesaver. There are no quotas, and there is no pressure to enroll families from Project Lifesaver. Eligibility for enrollment in this program requires a physician's diagnosis of a progressive brain disorder, cognitive decline, dementia-related conditions such as Alzheimer's disease, autism, Down syndrome, or another related cognitive or developmental disorder. And the equipment is not placed on anyone without the consent of a legally responsible party. So that's kind of the basic rundown of the Project Lifesaver and what we would like to do. And if you have any questions, I may or may not have answers.
Yeah, please.
Welcome, Captain. It's good to have you here. Can you describe what this, just put it in plain speak. What is it? What does it do? Is it a piece of machinery? Just, can you tell the public what it is and what you do?
I probably should have done that to begin with, but yes. So Project Lifesaver is unique in that it uses RFID signals to locate individuals. So you would have a bracelet of some sort with a transmitter on it, and you use the RFID receivers then to triangulate the location using RFID means radio frequency. So you're using radio frequency waves, and there are pros and cons to RFID versus GPS. We're all familiar with GPS technology as like Apple tags or something like that. This can fail sometimes. GPS has a hard time going through walls or into buildings. If you have dense trees, it's difficult to get a signal from it. Things like dense cornfields, which I guess isn't as much of an issue as I'm used to here. But that's where GPS can fail, and RFID goes through walls, goes through buildings, goes through trees, things like that. So you have if you have an individual who wanders out into the town woods, they have their bracelet on that it's emitting a frequency, and then we would have 3 receivers, and we use the 3 receivers to triangulate their location and rescue them far more swiftly than we would if we were just out trying to do a grid search in the woods.
Captain Go, I have a question. So, all right, so we all remember when we were talking about the tower and how sometimes when you guys go into parts of Cumberland, you have to do the Statue of Liberty to be able to talk to each other, right, and get a signal. From what you were saying with those 3 receivers, it's not tied to the radio towers. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. They're handheld devices, and it's almost like old school, water locating. You use the little thing, you track the signal. I am not a radio person. I'm not going to be able to describe, how it works. I just know what it does.
So
Sorry.
we're like the long story short is that it comes with the technology to do the job, and just because we don't have perfect radio coverage within our entire town, like you're still getting technology that you trust and will be able to do its job.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks. Denise, then Bob.
Bob was blowing his nose. That's fine. He can go. He can go, Bob.
Better out than in.
Why don't we just go down to county and buy some ankle bracelets from them and put them on? Is there any technology difference between that?
I actually don't know how the ankle bracelets work, but I don't believe that's RFID. I think those are GPS. And I also don't really. I know you're somewhat joking, but I don't really enjoy the thought of someone bringing in Grandma Betty and us putting an ankle bracelet. It's not a.
Thank you.
It's not a good image.
Thank you for that, Bob.
Just wondering what.
Should we put an ankle monitor on you?
Well,
I mean,
my wife might
have
want
some
it.
respect.
I'm just wondering about the technology. That was the premise of the question.
Be gentle to Bob.
I can't wait till you get older. You're gonna have an ankle monitor, and I'm gonna throw you in a home.
Oh my God. We don't have a home. We have
I
to
know.
build one. That's why he needs one built in town. It's been his end game all along.
You can come. You've got a spot in my barn with the chickens.
Oh my God.
No insulation.
I'll give you some insulation.
I've got a bad.
I have a real question. A few actually, but I know this is about a grant and focusing on the grant first before all the questions about it, which you might not even know the answer to these questions, but I'm just curious how this would work in practice. So one, if we didn't get the grant, this is still something that seems quite valuable. Is this something that we would pursue through the budget process or like on a wish list if for some reason we don't get this grant? Is this something that happens enough in town to where we need this anyways?
I don't want to speak for the chief on this one, but it is something that we feel is very important and would definitely benefit the community. Our budget is very tight as is, so it would be very difficult for us to, take that into our budget as it exists today.
Yeah, it's understandable. Let's see. So it sounds like the starter pack, let's see, we'd be getting 20 to 25 kits, and then we would provide those, or you all would provide those to eligible families. What happens if, like, with someone is enrolled, if they move out of town, is it like it's still owned by the department where they need to return it and then they can be reused for someone else?
Yes, any family who wishes to enroll their family members would enter into a contract agreement with us, and we would work with our legal team, of course, to develop that contract. But one of the basic tenets that I've seen come up in the contracts that I've been reading is that they do sign saying that they understand that the equipment belongs to the department. They are required to, they would be required to be a resident of Cumberland in order to utilize the equipment. And if they were to move outside of town, then we would retain that equipment.
Okay. Do you know if there are neighboring towns that also have this technology to where, well, I guess the question too is what's the range? So if someone, you know, is wandering into Yarmouth or something, like, are we able to see that? Is it a relatively limited range to the receiver? Like,
I'm not sure of the exact range, but I do know that Cumberland County is also a member of Project Lifesaver, the sheriff's office. And I know Brunswick PD is as well. I'm sure there's more.
so if we have someone who has left town and they've gone into a town that does have the same technology, are they able to receive their signal with their receivers? It's all living in the same environment?
Yes, when we enroll them in the program, the ID bracelet that they have has a very unique identifier, and then that's how we track it. So we would give that identifier information to neighboring agencies.
Cool. All right, that's all my questions.
So I have other questions, but sort of to piggyback off of Denise. So this person, they take a trip to Massachusetts and get lost there. If there's a town that has, or a police department that has this, they could then use it there, kind of thing, and be found wherever, sort of wherever they are that has a part of Project Lifesaver.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Do you know the lifespan on this? You know, I mean, different things have different lifespans in here, and the batteries and all. But you know, this is 15-ish K. Will you be coming back in 5 years looking for another grant? 10 years? 2 years? Do we know?
There are batteries have to be changed in the transmitters every 60 days, and that's a pretty nominal fee for that. This would include 20 receiver kits. So for a town this size, that's going to take us a long time, I think, to utilize all 20 of those. There are multiple grants that are available for this same service. It's called Home Safe through the International Association of Chiefs of Police. There's several different grant opportunities. This is the biggest one, and since we're looking for startup costs, this is the one that we're aimed at right now.
So in theory, you know, whenever it is you need to sort of come back, we'd be looking for grants that are less because we already have a lot of the equipment, and we're just looking for, you know, batteries or additional training or something like that, but we've already got through the baseline.
Yeah, the agencies that I've spoken to about this that already have it, when they did have to go back for another grant opportunity, it was much less, more in a range of $2,000 to $4,000.
All right. And then you mentioned that the county is part of this, and then Brunswick. Is there any talk or benefit of pooling together and, you know, within Cumberland County, sort of getting ideally sort of all the, you know, police departments to have this, and then instead of it costing 15K, you know, we get a discount and all of it costs 10K kind of thing?
We would be able to pool together for training. So if we were to get this grant, then we would have the Project Lifesaver would come to us to provide training. And the county has already said that they're interested in helping share those costs.
Cool.
There was a second part to that answer that I've had and I've lost now. As far as the equipment goes, because it belongs to the agency, cost sharing, now you're trying to share equipment and pass it around from department to department. It's not always a good idea. That has not been explored yet, but I don't know why we couldn't look into it at least.
I get what you're saying, though. Like, not even like sharing equipment, but just getting towns on board with this, whether they're doing it through a grant or their budget process, like, so that there's like a wider net and we're all helping each other
Wider
find
net, bulk
everyone's-
purchases,
yeah.
you know, if it
Yeah.
costs X amount, you know, could we get a discount because 15 different, PDs are buying it as opposed to one kind of thing?
One of the side concepts or benefits of it is county's huge, and they have a lot of rural patrol, and they have contract towns, so it covers a lot more area than you would think, if that makes any sense, because they they contract, their contract deputies in Gray, in Standish, which are two, large, close-by towns. Towns like New Gloucester, North Yarmouth, more rural patrols, so they'll show up there, either them or the Stadies will show up, so, but they can also deploy that in a lot of those towns that don't have their own departments, and then they may combine and help out, as a, let's say, a co-aligned department, if you had something along those lines take place, I would imagine. But like us, Yarmouth, Freeport, Cape, Scarborough, Gorham, towns like that, they might be, they may be competing on this grant, or they may be trying to pursue that grant. So there's a lot wider distribution that we may find, especially if Brunswick is a huge one to be in there. So Brunswick, us, and Cumberland County, that's a big portion of our area too. So I guess, by having that, we may be able to maximize, especially due to the size of Cumberland County, from their like co-training opportunities, I guess would be a long story short. I just want to take a chance to thank Captain Coe for coming out tonight as well to do this. She pulled the memo together, and she and the chief approached me last week. Said, hey, we got this, we'd like to pursue this grant. And I said, oh, got the great opportunity. So as you might notice, tonight we have two different grant applications that we're bringing to the council. We'd like to bring it forward to the council because we don't want to, anything like over $10,000 basically. And even if there's a match or not, we want you all to have your blessing before we go down that road. And also it's a great opportunity to show great work that our team members like Captain Coe are doing to come in and kind of say, hey, we got great people doing good work here, and we're not always trying to put the burden on the taxpayers. We're trying to find opportunities out there to find partners who can provide us some grant opportunities.
All right, you sold us.
Before we go for yes, Andrew?
I just more had a question on like how I just don't know, like how often are we dealing with this, like sort of how many people do we think might partake in this, take advantage of it, and then how many times a year are you having to go find somebody who's missing for whatever reason?
I should have pulled those stats. Do you know last year we had, as far as knowing how many families would want to enroll, it's really going to be a very personal decision. Obviously, you are putting a tracker on a family member, and some families might hesitate to do that. So, just providing the opportunity to them is what we're here for. And whether or not they want to take advantage of that is going to be up to the family.
I don't have any statistics to share with you, but I would just say probably on average several times a year, 2-3 times a year, that we're either getting a call and then luckily, since I've been here, rapidly locating people, or more often we're talking with a husband or a wife who has a spouse that is in early stages of dementia, that there's been some wandering behavior. They're very concerned about them, and so they're reaching out to us to either express those concerns and ask for guidance. And so several times a year, I'm going to say, we're getting calls that we're trying to find somebody, and we've been lucky, like I said, up until now. But I have, in my past life in my former department, been part of a case where someone wandered and wasn't found in time and had a very tragic end. And to me, the possibility of acquiring this technology, whether it's through a grant or future funding through the town or however it might come to us, I mean, obviously, if it saves one life over the course of 20 years, that was money very, very well spent.
So
that's helpful.
Sort of on that, and this might be more a question for Whitney, of how are we going to be getting the word out there to, the town that this is available, and, that we have this, and to sort of both broad brush, but also targeted to, people that we think through past experiences, might really benefit or might be open to this, one way or the other.
Hi. I mean, we would obviously use one of our biggest channels is the Crier that goes out to thousands of residents every single week, and we would push it repeatedly. But I would kind of lean on the captain and the chief and see what other communities have done that's been successful for them in getting it out to people. If there's a place we can target it, we also have our library and our recreation department who are great at helping us get out information. So if we are lucky to, get the grant and get the technology, then we'll look at every different avenue we can get it out so that they have as many families enrolled as are in town and qualified and want to be enrolled. And we'll keep pushing it and have it on our website in different places so that officers can direct families that way as new families come into town and maybe have that question.
I also envisioned, when I was putting this together, I envisioned going to like the active living 55 and over and doing a presentation there and explaining to them what it was and how it's available.
Let's get the money first. Don't jinx us.
Madam Chair, when you're ready after the public hearing,
Yes.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Perfect. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this? Okay, great. Take a motion if there is one.
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the Cumberland Police Department to submit an application to the Department of Justice for a grant in the amount of $14,930 to support the acquisition of locative technology and the associated training for department personnel.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Real quick.
Yeah.
I think this is great technology. Thank you. The Cumberland Police Department has done a great job with people that have wandered for various reasons. I have a very close friend. He has an autistic son down this way, and every so often the kid wanders. And I could see how this fits into their life perfectly. And I think Andrew, you were talking about how do you get the word out? I think if they've gone someplace like to my friend's house, or they go to Grandma Smith because she went wandering, or they find somebody, you suggest it to the family. Hey, this is we have this option for you. And I think it's great for everybody. Thank you.
I just think it's really good, and think it's hopefully we can get the grant. And so
All right. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. 26-015, to authorize staff to submit an application to the Maine Office of Community Affairs for a housing opportunity grant in the amount of $15,000 to offset the town's costs for ordinance revisions, specifically consultant fees and legal review fees. Wow, this is music to many of our ears, I think. And does this come from our town planner?
Yes, ma'am. It comes from our town planner, Miss Bridget Perry.
Ms. Bridget Perry.
And this is, the state had talked about this a little while ago, understanding that there were going to be financial impacts of implementation of 1829 as a law. And so this helps offset the expense that the town will bear, but you don't get for legal expenses as well as staff time and other technical expertise that we may need to amend our ordinances. So we don't receive it if we don't apply, and there's a tight window, so we want to make sure we're ahead of the curve. Where other towns may just be guessing at it, I think Bridget had her fingers on the pulse of this and has a great estimate. So that's why we brought this forward this evening, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anyone from the public like to comment on this? No. Okay. Council discussion, questions, thoughts, feels.
I'd just like to say that I love both the previous item and this of going out and finding money that's not coming from the four corners of Cumberland for stuff like this. So to the staff, keep it up.
We'll try.
Thank you.
And to the state, this is a start, but that doesn't even touch the financial impacts of these things you're passing. So it's a good start. Let's see some more. That's the end of my speech.
I'll give you a motion. If there's no more discussion.
Does anyone else have anything to say?
you beat me to it.
Take it.
I move to authorize staff to submit an application to the Maine Office of Community Affairs for a housing opportunity grant in the amount of $15,000 to offset the town's costs for ordinance revisions, specifically consultant fees and legal review fees.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Cool. Do you have something for me to look at?
No.
Okay. Okie dokie. Next up, 26-016 to set a public hearing date of February 23rd to consider an act on a liquor license application for Rattle Shake LLC located at 319 Main Street. This is, as many people know, the former Louis Grill and Rise Pizza. And I think we learned, never mind, we're just setting a public hearing date, and I just would like to say I love the name Rattle Shake. I think that's awesome.
I love it too. I'm excited.
If there's no discussion, I'll give you a motion.
I have a question.
Okay.
I mean, I assume that when you go to rent a property or do anything with a property that is in a contentious zone, you read the ordinances and understand completely your role and requirements in said building, so there is not ire from your neighbors. Who does that outreach to businesses coming into town? Is that a code enforcement officer? Is there like a welcome to Cumberland Business Committee? Like, wait, have you read the ordinances? You agreed to this? Like, not to be micromanaging, like, rude about it, but really.
Oftentimes it'll enter through the planner.
Okay.
And so Bridget will have a conversation. Other times they'll talk with the planner or the planner and I will speak with them, or the planner and I and the code enforcement officer, depending upon the scope and scale of the project. So oftentimes I think, especially in this area, folks, oftentimes they read, they try to do their homework before they look at it. So, and the hours line up and everything along those lines with this works fine. And they've got a great operation down in South Portland that I've seen for the past few years as well, so.
Awesome. I dig
Great
the
looking
menu.
menu.
I
Yeah,
dig
it
the menu.
does.
Can
I'm
we have
excited.
breakfast on the weekends? That's a request. I request the breakfast.
I bet
Thank
they'll
you.
be at the public hearing, so we could talk with them
I'll
about
request,
that,
I'll
right?
request it then. So they can tell me no.
It's okay, I have one from my husband that they're open for 7 a.m. Manchester City
Okay.
matches, so, we all have our things. Okay, is there, unless anyone from the public wants to comment on our setting a date of a public hearing, we'll take a vote or a motion if there is one.
I'll make one for you, Madam Chair. I move to set a public hearing date for February 23rd to consider an act on liquor license application for Rattle Shake LLC located at 319 Main Street.
I'll give you a second.
Bob had it first.
Okay.
All those in favor, unanimous, Brenda. Okay. Herbal tonics.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okie dokie. It is that time of evening for new business before we move into executive session. Counselor Mahalik.
All right. So start off with food pantry, $20 there. Earlier, the town manager mentioned Frank Smith and the World Cup that he was chosen for. And, I just want to say that I think all of our town employees are really top notch. And we've always, as long as I've been here, we've always had a great team of employees. Yeah, Frank and I went to high school together. Sports are kind of his passion, so this is right up his alley. So, Frank, hats off to you, buddy. Congratulations. That's all I got.
Counselor Thorson.
So one little tidbit, in the interest of full transparency, I will say that Counselor Douglas and I met with the North Yarmouth Select Board Chair and Vice Chair recently to discuss the Joint Standing Committee meeting, previous one. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but there was a disconnect between what was on the agenda and what was conveyed to them in advance of us arriving there and talking about the school funding formula. They felt slightly blindsided, and I want to kind of understand the process, since Bailey and I are not on that committee, how kind of, because it was like multiple weeks where we knew that I at least was going to that meeting to talk about the formula. And I know it was on the agenda, but it seemed like they weren't ready for that discussion. So I wanted to make sure, whether it's our counselors on the committee, whether it's chairs or town managers, like, what is the process as far as giving people kind of a heads up on what we're coming at them with, you know, like two people who aren't usually there launch into a discussion on something they weren't prepared for. So I don't want that to happen again if I ever go to that meeting again, that kind of thing. Like, I just want to understand the process. Like, who's responsible for reaching out and what does that look like?
If you don't mind, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to clarify. I'll just say that there was no blind side involved. I know when Councilor Magoon and I were chatting at the end of the TRICOM meeting, it was brought up that that's what we were going to discuss, and that was with the chair. And I think the vice chair may have been sitting closely, but she may not have heard the conversation. But I know when I was speaking with the manager, and the agenda was there, and it was,
Right.
I guess you could say it was posted. It was, I mean, there was, I had my homework set out for me to make sure I was prepared for that.
Yeah,
in
you had
advance of
multiple
it.
papers.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I would say that there was no intent on the town of Cumberland from hashtag blindside approach there. It was more, we came with, I thought, with an open mind and open information to do that. So I
Yeah.
guess I would say, at least from one manager's perspective, that that was the conversation that I was anticipating well in advance.
Okay. And that's also where I thought I landed. We did meet because there was some feelings after that meeting, and I don't want to get into all of this right now, but basically there's a disconnect, and we are partners in multiple ways, and whatever we need to do, like larger groups of communication between their full board and our full board, whatever that looks like outside of TRICOM and joint standing, I don't know if there's a mechanism for that, other than just us calling each other one-on-one and like playing phone tag. Like, I feel like we would benefit as a council from meeting with the full select board, like all members, to discuss things, rather than two from each board, because it filters through individuals, whether it's in their direction or our direction. I don't know what that looks like, but I would like us to think about if there's a way to do that. Maybe not like once a year either, like more regularly, since we are so closely connected to each other.
I'd just like to make a comment, because I was there, and I don't feel that any action from Councilor Douglas or Councilor Thorson or Manager Sturgis was blindsiding in any action. I mean, it was a public meeting, and, you know, it's no different, in my opinion, than any other public meeting. People come in and people have comments, and every comment, in my opinion, was professional. So I'm sorry that we've, put some people in that spot, and nobody should feel that way, but that's just my take on it from being there, and I support all three of you 110%. So.
That's all I have. Just ideas.
But just one, I guess you could say, epilogue.
Sure.
The North Yarmouth manager, myself, and the superintendent meet every 2 months, at least, to sit down, and we talk about those items generally in advance of it, and like the TRICOM meeting this week. We looked at that agenda for this week coming up, and that's got, the cost sharing agreement as the concept is like the featured item on the agenda for this week, this week's discussion. Not the cost sharing agreement as far as the
Enrollment
school
study.
size go. Yeah, so this is more saying, the three towns or the two towns in the school district want to partner on a growth study is kind of what the, let's say, the featured bout is on Thursday. So we try to make sure that's all pretty. I mean, I think we have pretty darn good relationship. I mean, we all like each other. We have good conversations. We're pretty open. No one's playing cards.
Yeah.
It's mostly, you know, I mean, we all have known each other now for almost 2 years for me, but I've known Diane for forever. And they got a boatload of respect for her. I just think she's great. And Jeff, I like Jeff a lot too. And I get to know, more I get to work with him, he's been great to work with. So, you know, it's not, you know, Texas Hold'em. We're just trying to run 3 organizations and do the best we can for all of our communities.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that you all are doing that because that's your day job. Like, that's what you do. For us, this is a volunteer position, and so it's like the chair and vice chair go on outings or do things or have discussions, and then just in general, I'm not talking about like us necessarily, just in a structure where there are more people that communicate with others just because they're in like higher leadership positions, sometimes that info doesn't filter. And I don't know if that's the same in North Yarmouth, if we're always talking to the same person, if the rest are in on that conversation. And so that's why I wonder if there's a way for all of us to meet rather than just onesie-twosies. Because I don't know, is the message reaching everyone? Or does the message reach all of us? I don't know.
No, we can work to do better.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to chastise you. This is just
No,
like,
I'm not
just
taking it
based
that way.
off of that and, different perceptions. It's like, okay, well, like squash it by just all being there, and then we don't have to hear it through other people and whatever. So
Yeah.
seems more efficient.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, I'm done.
I think too, I think what you're kind of getting at is just like deciphering where people stand on certain things. I think, for the chair, vice chair situation, you're getting high level information, right? And I think it's hard to decipher, like, as a council and as a board, like where everyone sits, because I think it's also like not really on the chair or the vice chair to like convey stances on things. And so I think kind of what you're getting at is like, is there a time where we do have, like, does the joint standing committee become full board, full council, just to ensure that like we are regularly meeting and like as 2 whole groups versus like siphoned out like groups of people. I think like that discussion was challenging for a myriad of reasons, but I think like to your point, I think that's something we can, do to eradicate it. So
Exterminate. But no. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Put it on the agenda for next meeting for us to vote on it, because there's a clear process to initiate this. And we're all done talking. We're either going to do it or we're not going to do it. So let's put it to a vote and move the process ahead.
Are you talking about like changing the composition of the JSC?
Changing the funding formula.
okay.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Okay.
I think we can hit that during.
Yeah.
I had a meeting, and Tig attended that last week with Freeport, Yarmouth, Falmouth, Cumberland, North Yarmouth. I'd have to say it was a very productive time well spent. A lot of ideas were thrown about. Nobody didn't want to talk about not sharing services, and nobody wanted to say what was not on the table, which was really pleasing to hear from people. There was some ideas thrown about how do we include the schools, which I think is very important too. If we, you can talk about 20% of the budget, or you can talk about all the budget, all of people's tax dollars, and until there's a meeting this Thursday, with the school in North Yarmouth. I cannot attend.
Oh boy.
Are you going to attend virtually, Bob?
I'm not going to do that. I have to say that
Or write down your grievances and give it to us in advance.
I have probably held you all in disdain when you have used personal or family to step aside to go someplace. I have been told that I am going someplace with my granddaughters Thursday night, and I cannot attend.
Grace and
You may all berate me for that, and I will accept that.
It's okay,
as
Bob.
Being less than perfect.
This is more
I have met
important.
your granddaughters, and they are the sweetest little muffins on the planet. So I think that that is very, very well, like time well spent for you.
So, since I can't be there, I would ask that all of you, ask the school department, school board, superintendent, business manager, what are you doing differently this year that you didn't do last year? And how can we move that conversation forward? Why can't we buy school buses across the county? Why should we have a single mechanic for the town of Cumberland, SAD 51? Why can't we combine these services? Anyways, I'm sure you'll have a great meeting, but I'm in hopes that, we can stimulate the conversation Thursday night that if we want to do things, we have to do things differently. And I believe the tax impact this year is going to be enough that people are going to be beating the doors down and asking us what we're doing differently to help control cost. So, anyways, there is another meeting coming, and I forget that. Did you get it down?
No, because you were supposed to do it because I had to go on a work
All
call.
right. Denise, you had expressed an interest in being involved in that,
In what?
the joint towns. Maybe
I
not.
guess, yeah. Just let me know when, see if I can go.
Anyways, if you are, or if somebody else is interested in joining us, that would be great.
Bob, I might be able to help you. We can talk after.
All right, that's all I have.
I thought it was a really great meeting. I loved especially meeting with Freeport, who we don't see very often. And that particular counselor from Freeport and I are going to conspire on shared services for invasive management.
Nice.
Because Bittersweet doesn't care about where your town line is.
It'll
does
strangle
it?
you both ways. Does not
Right,
care.
but I think it was a great meeting. I think it would be, if we have a permanent buddy or if we have rotating buddies too, I would love to go to another one. Because also I think one of the great things is value, like I sat next to a counselor from Yarmouth. They just went through their reval. I was like, well, like tell me, how did it go? And just being able to benchmark and talk with other counselors is always a great thing, right? Even if it's not necessarily on the agenda items that you're there to discuss, just the general networking. I think we all get value out of it.
What is this meeting?
Huh?
What is this meeting?
It's like a very informal
Is it done by the county?
shared services.
GPCOG? What is this? This is just you guys like
It's just
meeting? It's
Bob,
not
yeah.
like, it's just, okay. So there's no like set dates or frequencies? Okay.
And a brand.
Make sure it has an acronym that spells something out.
It'll be sponsored.
Over to Bailey.
Coastal Waters Commission meeting is on Wednesday. And that's all I have today.
Councilor Douglas, I think that's not going to be happening. They cannot get a quorum. But the chief has he's working on a plan to get the answers that he needs for his question, so.
Okay.
That was late breaking news this afternoon, Councilor Douglas, so.
Breaking.
Councilor Magoon.
So the Parks and Rec Board was able to meet last week, and LCC also met last week. Twin Brook Master Plan is moving forward slowly but surely. The lease has been signed off. I don't know if it's been like officially signed, but signed off by school and town attorneys for the Greeley Road side and sort of delineating who has what, where the lines are, and all. And then it's moving along with looking at, the LCC and rec side of things with forestry management, trails, invasives, all that fun stuff as well. And also looking at policies, if there's anything else that we need to codify, change for Twin Brook at large. But it's moving along.
Vice Chair Eads.
A couple things. Condolences for the Tehran Hamilton family. I think they lived right up the street from where you grew up, Bob. He was originally from Shebig, and he was 94 years old.
Yes.
He passed away, and condolences to his family. I'm glad to hear you and Denise talk tonight about the formula of the schools. It's got to change. The formula based upon what our town's worth is so unfair to us. You know, it's got to be based upon the population of the students in the school, period. And that discussion on the formulas is coming. They can keep trying to push it off, but it's coming. I think in my a line from one of my favorite movie, Tombstone, just tell them we're coming and hell's coming with us. So, you know, we own a fiduciary, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of Cumberland, that this partnership in the school, funding the school, is fair to our residents. We can't push that off. We have the responsibility, and the responsibility should not be based upon the value of our homes. It's the number of kids, so I'm all in. I had a discussion with the chair this week on possible charter changes. If anybody thinks, you know, we want to try to do 1 or 2 a year, update our charters. So if you have something, let me know, and I'll get a list together, and at some point we can, as a council, meet and get what our priorities are going into the fall election, change what possible, if anybody has anything they want to change in the charter. Looking forward to the Tri-Con meeting. I just hope we get something done. You know, you're talking about consolidation. The last one we had, all I got out of it was a state of the state for the 3 entities. There was no meat and potatoes. And I hope we can get to it. Tig, you were talking about, you know, meeting with these other towns. They want to consolidate stuff, talk about the invasives. You know, part of the problem we had with the brown-tailed moth is we were spraying, but nobody else on that I-95 corridor was spraying. So we'd spray and help our residents out for a year, and then they'd come right back again because we had no cooperation from the other towns getting that done. So that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Great. Well, since we are still talking about invasives, I had a call from Paul Larrabee, who's our forester, and one of the things he mentioned is that the town has done a lot of work on the LCC, and I don't know, Andrew, LCC invasive subcommittee. They were the ones who were doing the knotweed. Do you know? Roadside work on the knotweed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Are you talking like on Route 1 with the Yarmouth?
on Middle.
Or, no, it's with Falmouth?
All over, from what I understand.
I believe so.
Well, Paul said that other towns have noticed what an excellent job was done and are trying to understand like how they can start doing it because it's been really effective. So I just, if you wouldn't mind giving kind of those kudos back to the LCC, I think that would be great because knotweed, as we know, can come up through the pavement, and so being ahead of it is something I think that we should be really proud of as a community, and just great work to the LCC on that. And we will hopefully get a walk if any counselors are interested in the springtime to see you know, some of the town properties and the impact on invasives. Okay, so just looping back to our workshop on earlier tonight on public roads, public-private. So I think that we decided that we want the finance committee to be looking at any future roads from a financial perspective, right? And then do we want to do a second workshop? What does everyone kind of feel about next steps and making sure that we have a plan moving forward?
I think we needed some data, right? Didn't we need like more information from Assistant Town Manager Bolduc maybe about, because we don't really have a financial idea right now of X amount of stuff equals one more person you have to bring in any of that. So I don't know if that's going to inform whether we have some public roads if these criteria are met, or what those criteria are. Like, I guess we could come up with like a rough draft or have like a show of hands on who wants to do what type of thing, but I don't know if we have like a lot of information right now to go off of.
I think we can work on this from the staff side. We can look
Okay.
at that and see what our load looks like based on the lane miles that we currently are maintaining, and then figuring out what that staff, like per staff member, number of lane miles type of relationship, and then look at that. I guess data is the way that we can attack that and report back to the council from there.
Could I request, unless anyone objects, so we're looking for a cost analysis on like residential, or, you know, whatever it might be for costing. I'm trying to figure out what the best way to say this, but cost analysis on impact. And then also I would love to see an impact fee model for new subdivisions, or however we want to frame it, but some sort of impact fee model that encompasses road maintenance. And then I'd like to have a discussion about where do we go from there. That would be my proposal on that.
On the fees, I'd like to see how we can leverage those fees to, whether it's, you know, to your example, sidewalks or, you know, affordable housing percentages or anything like that. You know, how can we leverage that to have things that we as a town want to have for new subdivisions, and to encourage, you know, what limitations are there on that?
Yeah, we can look into that.
I guess, Madam Chair, I was the one that brought the roads subject up, so I mean, if you need me to do some additional work on it, just let me know, I'm willing to help, so.
Okay, and then just reminder, 6 p.m. TRICOM meeting on Thursday. It looks like the agenda might be under the Joint Standing Committee on the North Yarmouth website.
And that's at North Yarmouth.
It's good to know.
Yeah, it's
The
at
meeting's
West
at
Cusco.
Yeah,
North
sorry, the
Yarmouth.
meeting, North Yarmouth is hosting the meeting, and I went to their website to grab the agenda, but it's not under the joint meeting, it's under the Joint Standing Committee. So if anyone's looking for it on their website, that's where you can find it.
It's on our website as well, Madam
And
Chair.
it's on our website as well. But in case there's anyone from either community that's watching our meeting, now you know there are two places to get it. Okay, and that's 6 o'clock at West Custigo on the 12th. And yeah, I think that is it for now. We are going to move into executive session. So if our kind friends who are here wouldn't mind vacating.
Love you.
Thanks, guys.
Would you like a motion, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, I would.
I move to a recess to executive session pursuant to Title I MRSA 4056E, consultation with the town attorney.
I'll give you a second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Brenda. Da, 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 da.
Is the town attorney coming?
Wait, we're still on air?